Finishers and factions catching action.
And welcome to Finishers and Factions does NXT. It's great to have you all. My name's Adam, one of the hosts of Finishers and Factions, and as ever, joined by my co-host Rich. Rich, welcome in.
Thank you, mate. How you doing?
Oh, I'm not too bad, thank you, buddy. Not too bad at all. And today we're covering the episode from the 4th of March 2025. This was this one just gone, and we were back in the Performance Center in Orlando, Florida. And we are sort of 1 week removed from NXT being on the road in Cincinnati, Ohio. And we start with a VT recap of last week's episode, which honestly, I really enjoyed last week's episode.
It was good.
What were your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it was a very good episode. There was a few little bits that I was a little bit like about, like the main event wasn't maybe as good as it could have been. That was obviously like the Ricky Saints match. His debut wasn't as strong as it could have been at all, actually, in his match with Javon Evans against Ethan Page and Wes Lee. But yeah, no, this week I definitely enjoyed just as much as, to be fair. And for me personally, at the moment, if you take out the production issues that NXT seems to have over the last few weeks, it's actually the strongest product, I think.
It's 100% the strongest product, and that's almost what makes it even more frustrating when it comes to the production issues that they've been facing, because realistically, there's no reason why NXT shouldn't be trouncing both Raw and SmackDown in terms of content.
Right? I mean, not only have they got some incredible talent on the NXT roster, but we've had, appearances from the Hardy Boys. We've had appearances from Moose. We've seen Santino Marella. We're seeing a lot of the TNA guys as well. That automatically adds in a bonus. You never know what you get in at the moment. NXT is top of its game.
Yeah, so much more sort of added value and things like that. And yeah, it's just, if they can get to the bottom of these production issues, I don't know if it's, this is the thing, is I don't know if it's WWE that are having production issues, which seems incredibly unlikely, or if it's Netflix.
Equally as unlikely, but someone is having some issues, because I know we've missed out on some crucial parts of matches. We've missed out on promos, all because the cable network in America has had adverts, and they've just cut everything out from that point to that point. Oof. So yeah, it did make things a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, and regrettably, this week is no different, as it sort of really spoilt this week for me. I didn't enjoy NXT as much as I have been, which sort of really annoyed me, because
Considering you look at the match card, like even just our first match between Chelsea Green and Piper Niven versus Zarya and Solruka, that was it's a banging first match. But as we push through the card, we get to see sort of like a lot of other good quality matches kind of come to the core. There was a few that were a bit hit and miss, but we got the North American Championship at the end of it. We've got some good matches on this card. But yeah, the production issues this week really did not help put NXT where it should be at the top of the ladder.
No, definitely not. But let's jump into this match. Current United States female champion, Chelsea Green, and her, I forget what, bodyguard, basically, Piper Niven versus the team of Zarya and Solruka, who have been, despite sort of looking like the original Odd Couple, they have been doing some really good work here in NXT over the last few weeks, and
are on a decent run as well. Yeah, they've had a bit of a hot streak the last few weeks. They've had some not big wins, but wins that you wouldn't necessarily expect them to have, considering the amount of time that they've been a tag team, and that's not long, to be fair. I think that's probably since sort of Vengeance Day we've seen more of them. But we've definitely starting to get to see a lot more of them, and they're definitely coming on quite strong this week. Where
Most definitely.
Chelsea Green has had a few incidents the last few weeks and a few losses that haven't necessarily hurt her, but have helped other people.
Yeah, it's not. It's definitely not been more of a hindrance to herself than a help. But
And she has been concentrating a lot more on this tag team thing with Piper Nevin, and we have seen her defend the Women's United States title as well. So
yeah,
be interesting to see what they're gonna push with that. But this match had some pretty good sort of spots in it. To be fair, I've got a few different ones noted. Mainly, I'm not going to lie to you, from Solruka and Chelsea Green. As much as we did see Zarya and Piper Nevin in this match, they weren't really there for a lot of this match. There was one bit where there was a double headbutt and they both kind of staggered around in the middle of the ring looking at each other like, what the fuck? That hurt. But that's all I've really got spot-wise from Zarya and Piper Nevin. There may have been a few that you've picked up that I haven't, which I'd be interested into knowing.
so for me, it's more. I've got probably quite a few more notes than you have around this, but I don't think a lot of it is actually to do with the match. As one of the notes that I've got is that for some unknown reason, not unappreciated reason, but certainly an unknown reason, we've got Lillian Garcia doing ring announcing on NXT this evening. And it's a case that I can picture his face, but I cannot for the life of me remember his name. The bloke that normally does ring announcing for NXT is inexplicably absent. And they've got, I mean, it's definitely a trade up. Lillian Garcia, I mean, is an absolute legend in ring announcing as it goes. But the other bits that I've got here is that we see bits and pieces throughout throughout this match where, like, I think Ava announces that. Oh, hang on. I'm trying to figure out my own frigging notes at this point. Yeah, I've got down here that Ava announced on Evans. I'm not 100%. As I said, I had real issues with this episode this week, and I'm not sure if I've got notes down here that happened before the match officially started. If there was a promo, because I've got down here in the notes for this match that Ava announced that Javon Evans will be facing Ethan Page next Tuesday at Roadblock in a New York street fight at Madison Square Garden.
Wasn't that a recap from last week's episode?
No, I don't think so.
But I also think we're missing something here, right? So just to go back into the match, to be fair,
yeah,
it's won by Zarya and Solruka. There's a double team on Solruka as she goes to hit the moonsault. Piper Nevin ends up dropping a leg drop on Chelsea Green mid-ring. Zarya throws Piper Nevin onto Chelsea Green in like a powerbomb style. And Solruka hits a soul snatcher on Chelsea Green for a very clean three count pin in the middle of the ring. One thing we do see is during this match, Chelsea Green has an unfortunate. She ends up suffering an injury. She takes something to the face. I'm not entirely sure. I'm hoping it's not Piper Nevin's ass, but she ends up with a broken nose, and you can see that the inside of like the bit in the middle of your nose, the septum, that was very much bent to a rather awkward angle. So yeah, there was blood everywhere for a little while. So yeah, I'm hoping Chelsea Green feels slightly better. So she can get back in the ring and have it repopped by Piper Nevin's butt cheeks again.
Yeah, this is it. Got some big time color all over her face, which was quite a visceral image.
Yeah, and then from the match, I had a backstage segment, so I'm not entirely sure where our notes have gone different directions, but I think they'll probably lead us back to the same place. So we'll might have to go with it.
Pretty much. The only other thing that I'll mention that seems to be in my notes for this match is that there'll be there are roadblock related press conferences sort of things taking place during during NXT, some of which we are actually privy to as the episode progresses. So yeah, I've got a GM office promo next after this match.
With Ava and Jordan Grace. Is that the one that you've got?
Yeah, talking about Roxanne Perez from last week.
Roxanne Perez is a little bitch, and she gets around everywhere, but she's got her finger in so many people's faces. You know when people wave your finger in your face and all you want to do is rip it off and shove it down their throat? She's the one waving the finger in everyone's face at the moment. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you're on NXT, whether you're on Raw, or whether you're in the Elimination Chamber. She's sticking her finger in your face and she's telling you something you don't want to hear. And it starts getting tasty with Roxanne Perez, because we get told about Cora Jade getting a match against. So Cora Jade has managed to wangle her way into a match against the TNA Women's X Division champion Masha Slamovich.
So, TNA Knockouts title holder Masha Slamovich.
That's the one. Sorry,
Masha Slamovich.
I don't know much about TNA.
Yeah, no, it's it's a bit of an odd one, that one. I'm not sure how, but then again, this seems to be sort of Cora Jade's MO, is that she seems to get these matches seemingly out of nowhere. But again, this could have all been sort of born of a what's the word I'm looking for, of a storyline from TNA that we just haven't seen. So this is going to be possibly sort of a bit of a running theme with our coverage of NXT for the foreseeable future, is that we're going to miss out on big parts, not because we're bad at taking notes. I mean, I'm not off to a fantastic start this week, but it's more of a case.
In my work week to consider TNA as well as 3 live shows or 3 programs a week from WWE plus PLEs and stuff.
Yeah, this is it. WWE on its own to try and cover, while both of us have full-time responsibilities, is a physical impossibility. We're just not going to be able to do it. It ain't going to work.
Say, I get behind some weeks as it is, and Adam's like, "Dude, we need to record." I'm like, "Oh, bro, like I still need to finish this episode."
But having said that, it's a case that even that there are weeks where I've been behind. This week is one of them. I think Rich actually, for the first time in a long time, has managed to pull ahead of me slightly. But it's a case, if we had to try adding other promotions like TNA and fucking AEW, it is a case that we're just gonna fall so far behind. It's going to be such a massive workload. We'd essentially need another. We'd need more hosts to cover these different frigging promotions, basically.
And then you'd end up getting more episodes, because each conversation would have to be split into at least 2, because we already talk enough shit for 2 hours as it is without adding a third person in with us to. Yeah.
100%.
That could be dangerous.
100%.
Yeah. So we've got this match all lined up. If I see anything on social media about it, I'll probably go back and give it a little watch, but I'm not gonna hold out too much. We then go from this backstage segment with Ava into well, we see Jada Parker come into the ring, really, and then we're introduced to the fact that we're getting a match between Jada Parker and Kalani Jordan. This is yeah. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes, going, what? Yeah. So we then go into a backstage segment with Trick Williams talking to Ava about. Well, he's trying to get something out, and I don't quite remember off the top of my head what he was trying to get out. All I made note of was the fact that Uriah Connors and Cale Dixon were trying to constantly give Ava a parcel, and Ava's like, "Oh, yeah, no, it's cool, I'll take it." And then Trick Williams is like, "No, take your parcel, fuck off. Like, come back in 5 minutes." You know?
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Trick Williams has been he's been in a fucking terrible mood for weeks now. And yeah, just not. He's very much. I'm getting the impression, because we have to point this out every now and again.
Give him a whooping, he's been in a bad mood.
I think this has spanned even sort of further back than that. So the very first episode covering NXT that Finishes and Factions did was New Year's Evil.
It was.
This was where Trick Williams lost his NXT men's title to the current champion, Obafemi, and that has just been a steady decline for Trick Williams from that point on.
Definitely. But it does say one interesting thing about Finishes and Factions, though. Just bear with me a second, because I thought I was signed in, but I'm not. See, we do this live. This episode going out is currently going to be episode number 34 of Finishes and Factions.
Yes.
So that means that Obafemi has been holding his title over the course of 32 episodes, of which a majority of those have been NXT. I'd like to say a third, but I think they've had more PLEs. But yeah, so we've spent a lot of time watching Obafemi with that title ever since he took it off Trick Williams.
Yeah, this is it, and we've just seen Trick Williams trying to get he's trying to redeem himself to a certain degree, but it's...
You say that, a man trying to redeem himself does not grab Cale Dixon by the jaw and pin him up against the wall.
No, but a pissed off Trick Williams definitely does.
Yeah, doing that in front of your boss as well, I would not recommend, guys. Talking from personal experience, and don't do it to your boss. That might get you fired.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, talking from personal experience. But we then jump back into the ring, but this really pissed me. They'd already started the match.
So this was Jada Parker versus Kalani Jordan.
It was.
And we've said before, well, I've certainly said before, that no matter what Kalani Jordan does,
She's boring.
I really struggle with her.
Yeah, so
it's a case that Jada Parker, we haven't seen a lot of. I can get behind Jada Parker.
Bet you could.
Yeah, I expected that.
That's not what she said.
Like, yeah, like Jordan Grace. Haven't seen a lot of her. I can root for Jordan Grace. There's so many other superstars in NXT that I haven't seen a lot of, but I can sort of decide whether I'll root for them or whether I fucking hate them. Kalani Jordan sits very much in that grey area in the middle. She's almost like, for me, she's like the Taylor Swift of NXT. Is that she's so generic? It's a case that just.
Oh no, I completely agree with you. I don't think there's enough character development there for Kalani Jordan. She has some ability. Actually, to be fair, she has a rather large amount of ability. character's not been built strong enough.
I would say it's just very little charisma
And
about
you
her.
don't
She's not.
see her
She's not.
outside of the same 2 or 3 jaded opponents. That we haven't seen her against anyone yet that's given her an opportunity to show off her ability, to make me sit there and go, you know what? I think I got that one wrong. And hopefully by the time we get to the WrestleMania week episode of NXT, that I'm sat here going, you know what? Really annoyed that we doubted Kalani Jordan when we first started this podcast, because I've cacked on her since the first episode, which is NXT New Year's Evil, and I'm really not feeling much. I did get a fair chunk of notes for this match, some pretty nice sort of highlights, so to speak. I've got the fact that we see Jada Parker, using the running the turnbuckles to do a backbreaker off the top rope. We see modified Russian leg sweeps from Kalani Jordan, which, ironically, where we say we don't feel much from her character development, did you know Kalani Jordan was the first ever NXT Women's North American Champion? Current title holder of that is Stephanie Vaquer, as we air this episode. So she has got an ability now. I didn't make note of how long her title reign was. It's not something I tend to research very often, but yeah, she has held a title. But this match was the first singles match between the two women as well. Bearing in mind how long, from what we're told by the commentary team, they've been together, it was surprising that this was the first time we saw them go one-on-one.
Yeah, it's. That first time in the ring is always something that we look for, because it's a case that there's no familiarity there. It's all new. The superstars in the ring don't know what's coming. We don't know what's coming. Whereas if you've got somebody that's been feuding for a while, it's a case that we know what to expect, sort of thing. But just because I am that sort of, I will do that sort of research. You said you didn't have a note of how long Kalani Jordan's inaugural NXT Women's North American Championship reign was. It lasted for 140 days.
So we're not talking about a small title run then?
No, this is it. It's and it's a case that she was dethroned by Fallon Henley, who then reigned for a further 111 or 110 days, as recognised by WWE.
Wow, there we go. The man with the plan came up with the stats again. This is why I love doing it, because I know that I'll think about it and I'll say it, and you'll be like, you know what, mate, you read my mind. It's there.
Yeah, exactly. It's why it works.
With that in tune, that before we started recording this episode of the podcast, both myself and Adam, while sat in Discord, belched at the exact same time in the exact same style, and just carried on with the silence afterwards. Like, we hadn't said anything for a moment or two, but yeah, boom.
In fairness, you were the only one that heard it. I didn't actually hear anything come from you or your side, but that's nothing unusual either.
Discord sound quality is dog shit.
Yeah, we've maybe as time goes on, we'll figure out a different way of being able to get this all right. But for now, at least,
and making it for the better sound quality.
That could be a way forward. Anyway, digress.
We digress there. Right, so the last few spots that I want to throw in there, ironically, are Kalani Jordan spots. So at one point towards the end of the match, Kalani Jordan locked in a crossed-face chicken wing. The name of that move had me in stitches. I'm not going to lie. Just the idea of it at the time was quite funny. We also have Kalani Jordan again hit what I can only describe as the sweetest Spanish fly from the top rope of the top turnbuckle. Chef's kiss on the way that move was choreographed because they sold it so well, the both of them, that it was just perfect, like absolutely perfect.
I'm glad you knew what the name of that move was, because I can remember. I can see it in my mind's eye now that you've mentioned it. And I wanted to make a note of it, but could not for the life of me figure out what the move was called. And by the time I'd figured out any way to be able to describe what it is that I was looking at, we'd already moved on. So it was kind of a case of I didn't want to sit there for 20 minutes trying to figure out how to describe this move that I'd seen, which was, completely agree with you. Absolutely fantastic.
All I heard in my head as that move hit was good old JR himself, like, oh my God.
Living legend that he is.
Yeah. With a rather good barbecue sauce too. If you haven't invested in some, you should.
I haven't. I've been meaning to, as somebody that prolifically uses barbecue sauce. I'm ashamed to say that I have not partook on good old JR's BBQ sauce. I will sort out some at some stage. It's just
it's a tad on the expensive
haven't pulled that trigger yet.
Worth it.
Fair. Yeah, but
not sponsored or endorsed, but would quite happily have a conversation about it.
I'd be more than happy to sit and have a conversation with JR. Sod the sauce, like I mean, it'd come up eventually anyway. It's a case that, I 100% at one stage or another I will reach out. I will. I know I follow him on Twitter. I will reach out and see if he's game to come and have a chat with two British wrestling fans and see what happens from there. But yeah,
so
that might be something in the works.
We ended up with Jada Parker hitting one of her. I don't know if we call it a signature move. It's a move she used quite a lot, but she hit the hypnotic, which is basically just what Jacob Fatu does, but not quite as powerful. It's a hip run into the corner, really. And then got a clean 3 count in the middle of the ring on Kalani Jordan again.
Yeah, this is it. So Kalani Jordan continues her.
Like I said, it was their first singles match, but they have been in tag matches together and they have had finishes of matches at the same time in those environments.
But Kalani Jordan is not on what anybody would refer to as any kind of winning streak just at the moment.
No, she's losing just as much as the Island Boys are in legal fees right now.
Yeah.
So we went
from there
into a conversation with what I got it down as the D'Angelo family. And you've got Stax and the young lady's name who I can never remember.
Rizzo.
Yeah, that's the one. I should know that from Greece, to be fair. But yeah, Stax and Rizzo talking to Tony about how his back is since he had that match against. I had the same issue with this guy last week. His name begins with an H.
I know who you're talking about, and I can't think of it either.
If you go back to the episode of the last PLE that NXT did, you will be able to find out who Tony D'Angelo faced in the steel cage before he got his beat down from Shawn Spears and his group of cronies, which have started coming into the fray a little bit more. And then we got to see a little bit more about these backstage press conferences that Adam was talking about a little bit earlier. And we get to see one with Obafemi talking about his match with Moose and how he's going to represent WWE and the NXT brand on TNA TV. And, you know, if he loses that title, it'd be the first time that we'd have a TNA champion running around with a WWE championship, and he's really not going to let that happen. Obviously, this match is coming up next week at Madison Square Gardens when NXT does, I want to say Roadblock, but I could be wrong, so I'm not 100% sure. But they are facing off next week in Madison Square Gardens, New York. So being back in the Performance Center this week was just a stopgap between for these guys, a bit of time at home in there, or a bit of time with family while they were traveling around from Cincinnati, Ohio last week. We then end up getting an in-ring promo from the TNA Tag Team Championship holders, which, as long-term WWE fans would know as the Hardy Boys. So Matt and Jeff Hardy come out to, as normal when you see Matt and Jeff Hardy, one hell of a pop with the WWE Universe, and they come out talking about how awesome it's been to be able to come across to WWE, to NXT, you know, how good their, No Quarter Catch crew were in their match against them last week. And the fact that, you know, no matter where these guys have been within the wrestling industry, and trust me, over the years, these guys have been into many, many different promotions. We've seen them run the indie circuits, we've seen them in WWE, we've seen them in TNA, we've seen them in AEW, we've seen them in Ring of Honor. You know, at one point before they returned a few years ago, they were over in New Japan Pro Wrestling. You know, there was a lot of these guys have held tag team gold in pretty much every promotion they've been to. So for them to come out and give No Quarter Catch crew the compliments they were giving them about, you know, how good they were, that really does do an awful lot for No Quarter Catch crew. Even though they took a loss, they put last week's episode, they put on a hell of a match against the Hardys. We went into a little bit more detail of that on a previous episode, which you will be able to find on whichever platform it is that you're using. So as the Hardy Boys are stood in the ring talking about the match they have with Fraxium at Roadblock in Madison Square Gardens, we end up having an unusual combination come out to the ring. Now, we had Hank and Tank come down, which is not something I was expecting at all, to be fair, but gave it a slight sort of different feel to it. Because Hank and Tank come down to the ring saying, "Look, you guys are the greatest tag team in our industry, in the history of our industry. We want to be the greatest tag team in the history of our industry. Like, what advice could you give us to help us go to the next level?" And there was a few coy little remarks in the response that you got from the Hardy Boys, and it's like, well, you know, you've got to find things that work, and you've got to make sure you're hungry, and if you're not hungry, it's not gonna do what you want it to do. You've really got to be what it is that you're trying to portray. But sometimes, you know, it helps if you take things, you know, a little extreme. And there's an exchange between the two about, you know, maybe having to feel the need to use such things like tables and ladders and chairs. And I made a note of this. TLC, growing up for me, was one of my favourite PLEs. Like, I have never had more fun watching wrestling than when it has involved ladders, tables, and chairs. Just because you go back through some of the big pay-per-views when we've had sort of these involvements, and they've just been absolute phenomenal matches that even sort of 10 years later people go, "Oh, do you remember that match?" Or you've got the I remember seeing clips of a match between the Hardy Boys, the Dudley Boys, and Edge and Christian, and there was ladders and spears and God knows what going off, and it was an absolute brutal carnage match, but it was absolutely phenomenal. So we then end up with this one. Matt's talking about impossible challenges when we get to see Josh Briggs and Yasuki Inamura come out saying they've come out to break up the Hardy Party, and Hank and Tank need to remove their lips from the Hardy Boys' asses. They're accusing there a little bit of ass kissing there, but to be fair, is looking for advice from someone who's better at what you do ass kissing, or is it just trying to level up the game? Are you trying to do something a little bit different to try and get there, or I personally, if I had an opportunity to sit and talk to someone, say like Joe Rogan about podcasting, I don't think that's ass kissing. I think trying to learn from the best is the only way you can learn. Is if you're trying to be the best, it's the best way to learn. So I think that's fair enough. But Briggs and Inamura basically say that it doesn't matter what advice Matt and Jeff Hardy give them because they're wasting their time and their breath, because Briggs and Inamura are taking the title shot from them. Now, I wasn't aware that Hank and Tank had a title shot against Matt and Jeff Hardy, so I'm guessing this is more relative of like, you're not going to get an opportunity because we're going to be the ones that get there instead. Now, this was quite interesting to see, and it was a nice little homage to the Hardy Boys, actually. Just Hank asked Tank if he's thinking about going a little bit extreme, and the two of them dive over the top rope and start brawling with Briggs and Inamura. And as he, you then got Matt and Jeff stood in the middle of the ring looking at Briggs and Inamura, and then Hank and Tank brawling up the entrance ramp towards the locker room. And Matt suddenly kind of says, Fraxium, I knew you'd come. And as the camera angle turns around to face the Hardy Boys, it then jumps into you've got Fraxium behind him. So you've got Nathan Fraser and Axiom, who are the current NXT tag team title holders, and then we basically have a conversation between the two tag teams about are they going to have the greatest? They want a match in Madison Square Gardens, and it's going to be the greatest tag team of all time versus the greatest tag team of today. And both teams are basically saying they're going to bring the best they've got. I don't know at the moment if the titles are going to be on the line. It would be interesting if they are, but I don't think it has been advertised that way as of the moment.
I think at the minute it is more of an exhibition match than anything else. I don't think they're necessarily putting titles on the line, but I wouldn't quote me on that as I'm not 100% certain.
Yeah, no, like I said, it definitely didn't mention anything that I remembered about this being a title match. It just definitely feels like an exhibition tag match. But then, to be fair, it's something that we've seen on TNA television, or we know has happened on TNA TV. I've not watched it. I don't know if Adam's gone back and watched specific matches just to help with the knowledge out on the podcast. But
not on this occasion, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, I didn't think you would have done. But we do know that Fraxium have faced the Hardy Boys on TNA TV, so this will be the first time we see them on WWE programming after this deal.
So I don't think they've faced the Hardy Boys. I think they've teased it. This has been teased for a long time, is Fraxium facing the Hardy Boys. I don't think they've actually faced off against one another. I know Fraxium have gone to TNA and defended the NXT Tag Team Championship that they're holding over on TNA against some of TNA's teams. But the Hardy Boys and Fraxium have not faced off as of yet. And this is what makes this such a big match, is it's their first time teeing off against one another, and it's the first time we're going to get to sort of answer the question of who's the better tag team.
Do you have hiccups, my good sir?
I had one hiccup. That was it. It was a lone hiccup. But yeah, we basically went from that promo into. I've got down here. I've got a VT for the match between
the title
for the
versus title match.
The title versus title between Stephanie Vaquer and Julia.
This again is a match at Roadblock, the champion versus champion, title versus title. So one
Winner
of those two women,
all.
yeah, will walk out of Madison Square Gardens holding both belts. Now, I personally can't understand why we're getting this match, but it is something we're getting, so we're going to wait in anticipation for how good it's going to be, because these two women are phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, we all know what to expect from Julia in a match. We know what to expect from Stephanie Vaquer in a match. And me, if I'm a betting man, I've got an odd feeling that Stephanie Vaquer is going to have the edge. Personally, I think that's how it's going to work out. It just, yeah, it's going to be a close match, but I've got a feeling that that Julia's dropping her title. It wouldn't necessarily make sense considering how short a time Stephanie Vaquer has had that title for her to drop it so quickly, because we end up getting into the we end up getting dangerously close to a period of time in WWE history where title holders were changed 2 or 3 times nightly. And it just devalues the title doing it that way. But so I think logically it makes sense that possibly, as I say, Stephanie Vaquer is going to end up walking out of that match a double title holder.
First ever NXT double title holder as well. Well, women's double title holder. It's a big point. They've been marking it up as a big point in women's wrestling. And then they gave us a VT of the history of women's wrestling in Madison Square Gardens, and they included some boxing bits as well, which was an intriguing one. But I think it was UFC stuff, wasn't it? Which would be part of the TKO group, which also own UFC and WWE.
Yeah.
And then we went from that VT into the second match of the evening.
So this would have been the third match of the evening, and this is sort of where things all start to unravel a little bit for NXT here. Now, I don't know what this was like when they did it live. I managed to find some footage that didn't make the edit, if you like, because we've said before, me and Rich have a tendency we won't sit up and watch these live get out when they go out. Again, mostly because we've got full-time commitments that mean that we can't stay up until 3-4 in the morning watching wrestling and then be able to get up and go about our daily lives without feeling like a bag of shit afterwards.
SmackDown, I would have to be at work 2 hours after that episode finished, and yeah, no, thank
you. Yeah, just neither of us have got the time and I'm not going to say we're old men here, but we're not quite as young as we used to be, where we could have stayed up until that time and bounced back to relatively easily off the back of it. We're not there anymore.
We have done that in previous years, playing video games where we've kind of gone, oh, dude, my alarm's gone off. Oh shit, I've got to go to work.
Yeah, this is it. More than one occasion, me and him have had where we've had to go out and do a full day's work, having had no sleep whatsoever. But yeah, no, we don't have it in us to do that anymore, unfortunately. So, so because NXT, mainly NXT. We seem to see this with. I'm not sure if it's WWE that edit it together or if it's Netflix or a collaboration of the two, but we seem to have missed out a huge chunk of what goes on in this match. So the next match is a women's singles match between Jordynne Grace and Cora Jade. This was sort of made earlier on after their, I'm going to say, heated discussion in the in Ava's office earlier on in the episode, and one of the things that they do point out, almost completely unrelated to the match in the ring, is that Masha Slamovich, the TNA Knockouts champion, is in attendance in the crowd, and is put in camera as being in quite a prominent position, of which she disappears from shortly afterwards. So she was there purely for to get the FaceTime with the camera. But
well, considering she's got a match against Cora Jade next week as well, you'd expect her to want to get some research done on what she's going into the ring with.
well, this wasn't particularly very good research from what I wouldn't have walked out of NXT thinking, do you know what? Actually, I'm a little bit more prepared for a match with Cora Jade in a few days' time, sort of thing. As it's a case that while Jordynne Grace sort of held a lot of the momentum for the majority of what little of this match we actually saw, Jade did have a few good bits where she was able to fly, sort of fight back. Actually managed to slam the back of Jordynne Grace's head into the turnbuckle at one point, but
Yeah, that didn't look too pleasant, I'm not going to lie.
no, it didn't. But that wasn't what sort of cut this match short. Is that Jordynne Grace ends up charging at Cora Jade into a corner, at which point Jordynne Grace is pulled off of Cora by the referee, and next thing we know, referee's throwing up the X's, which for anybody that doesn't know, and a referee throws up the X's. This is unplanned. It's not something that they have. It's not part of the script, for a lack of a better way of putting it. It's a case that this is something that nobody was expecting, and there's normally a real injury that's included with this as well. But we're not given any details as to what happened at all. With some research that I did while watching the episode, it turns out that Cora Jade managed to sustain some kind of head injury during the match. And because the match is called off, Jordynne Grace is declared winner by default.
You can see her mouthing in the ring, "Ow, my knee." She starts off holding her knee in the corner, and then all of a sudden her head hurts.
Yeah, this is what it doesn't make. If I've assumed this is unplanned, because if this is planned, I'm not seeing the payout of doing it this way. And that's the way I've chosen to look at it, because it could very well be that it's planned and there's a payoff for this, and some in a week or two's time. But at the moment, I'm not seeing any potential payoff for this whatsoever. It just doesn't seem to make any logical sense. Obviously, we hope Cora. We've never been particularly kind about Cora Jade on the podcast before, but doesn't mean that we don't hope that she's not got anything sort of majorly wrong with her. I mean, if it is something to do with her knees, I know that's close to where the ACL is, which I know she's had time off for in the past with ACL injuries. So yeah, we're hoping that it's nothing too drastically serious that means that she wouldn't be able to come back and maybe have a more active role in the storylines than what she's had so far.
Well, yeah, no, definitely. So we then went from this into a NXT spotlight about Tony D'Angelo winning the North American title, and there was a little intersection of this about how Shawn Spears was basically coming for that title. Um, we do know from previous episodes that the main event of tonight's episode is a match between the two for the North American title. That was given to us last week when, it got a little bit heated between the two teams.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got to wait for the main event for that one from there. Now, we went next into... I've dubbed this a split screen interview promo. So something similar to what you'd see on a news program where you're interviewing two different parties in two different places, sort of thing. And that certainly seemed to be the case here, as we had Ethan Page on the left hand side of the screen and Javon Evans on the right. And yeah, we already had announced that there was a match between the two at Roadblock. It was a New York street fight. I think trying to end whatever animosity is left between the two. And
I don't think that's going to end in just one big match though. I think this is going to continue to brew for a while. Like they've got a lot of hatred for each other, and they're not just going to kick the shit out of each other once and go, "Yeah, we're best mates now. Let's form a tag team." This is going to continue.
Well, to me, Javon Evans has got plenty of reason to hate Ethan Page.
Ethan Page took
the guy shattered. I was going to say the guy shattered. That Ethan Page shattered Evans's jaw.
He
didn't break it; he shattered it.
Because what he's done to him progressively over the course of the last few weeks has pretty much just been curling one out in his cornflakes.
Yeah, I've got to admit, I had to wonder where you'd got that from for a second, because I was starting to think I must have missed that part of NXT. But yeah, no, very much so. It's a case that he's... that would be a promo and a half. I don't think it's a promo I'd want to see either. But yeah, it's a case that he's very much been sort of poking fun at him, and he's come off with a few victories from him as well, but they weren't necessarily convincing victories. It wasn't something that he just sort of dominated Javon Evans at any point. Javon Evans has played a blinder of a match, only to be either in the wrong place at the wrong time or just really unlucky, as that jaw injury plays a part almost every single time.
Yeah, well, obviously we know it was a storyline issue, but for a guy whose jaw was rocked, that second match they had where he lost his gum shield, unless you've got absolutely no regard for your own safety, even wrestling again, stupid. Like, the fact that they're still having this series of matches is just going to make it all a lot more interesting.
Well,
that I always like seeing Ethan Page get his ass handed to him on a plate. That's going to be fun.
Ethan Page has lost a lot of his mystique from this promo, because he admits that the entire reason he's done all of this is it is a severe amount of jealousy, which, do you know what, I can sort of understand, because Ethan Page has worked his entire life and hasn't long been in the WWE, as the WWE is the big leagues. It's where everybody wants to end up when they step between those ropes, sort of thing. Whereas Javon Evans is quite considerably younger than Ethan Page.
Yes.
I mean, the guy's 20 years old, and he's made it to the big leagues already.
Well, that just shows the caliber of talent he is, though, which is why when you mix him with someone like Ethan Page, it's going to bring out the best of both of them.
Yeah, so Ethan Page is 35 years old, so Javon Evans is 15 years his junior.
It's all right. If he's 35, it means I'm still a year younger. Better looking too, but I'm still a year younger than someone. It's all good.
Yeah, none of this father time bollocks for you yet, just yet. But yeah, they're basically in a no rules match next week, dubbed New York Street Fight, as NXT will be coming to us from the Garden for Roadblock. But I'm gonna I'm going to call this as it is supposed to be called, but I'll explain why I've done this in just a second. So, the next item on the card was a match, men's singles match between Trick Williams and Cale Dixon, who came to the ring with Uriah Connors as well. And the reason I'm not, the reason I'm sort of calling this as it was supposed to be called is because this wasn't just this was the squashiest of squash matches I think I've ever seen in my life.
Well, this was that squashy that you could put 20 of them in a packet and sell them for £1.29 in the local shop.
Yeah, very much so. It is a case that this match ended as quickly as it started.
Oh, yeah. But it ended with the perfect trick shot. Well, actually, to be fair, the only move we saw in this match was a trick shot, and Trick Williams hit it clean.
Yeah, and after he's finished sort of demolishing poor Cale Dixon, he basically uses the opportunity to call out Eddie Thorpe and challenge him to a definitive match at NXT Underground. Now, as a complete NXT rookie still, it is a case that I don't know what Underground is. We seem to think that it might be some kind of PLE-esque type show, potentially, in a few weeks, sometime between Stand and Deliver and Roadblock. But yeah, not 100% certain what we're going to be seeing with that one.
No, you said it was called NXT Underground.
Yeah. And I imagine Rich is doing exactly the same thing that I'm doing.
It looks like it's coming up with more of it's a match type rather than a.
So, let's see.
It's the March 18th episode of NXT.
It was a Fight Club inspired concept hosted and commentated by Shane McMahon. Now, I do remember actually something along these lines when NXT sort of first started coming out and Shane O'Mac had a run. And yeah, I didn't think they still did this.
Wow, are we going to see the money?
I think we may.
I mean, it could be an interesting one. I'll wait and see. I will definitely wait and see with bated breath. Just to hear the entry music, to be fair, would be pretty cool. So we then end up having an interruption. Well, he calls out Eddie Thorpe. Eddie Thorpe's in the sort of crowd interview area. You know, that little up top bit where you normally see sort of like.
Yeah. It's the crow's nest, isn't it? It's the mezzanine platform, if you want to call it that. But
he's busy telling Trick Williams that he's not the man anymore, but he still walks around like he is the man. But Eddie Thorpe should be the man. So yeah, at Underground they've got their match. At the moment, we've seen no added stipulations to it. As far as I'm aware, it is literally just a one-on-one match.
Oh, it's a mano on mano. None of this strap match bollocks. It is a case that these guys are going out there basically to hurt one another in a in a sanctioned WWE match, and yeah, they'll do whatever the hell they like from there, basically.
Yeah, we then go backstage to see someone getting the living shit beaten out of them with a chair by Roxanne Perez, for the camera to move slightly for it to be revealed that Jordan Grace just got a dome split by a steel chair from Roxanne Perez. And as Roxanne Perez walks off, she basically just kind of mutters the phrase "Welcome to NXT," and then that's kind of the last we see of that for now. We then go
Yeah,
into
it was like a mini clip, wasn't it? It was a clipette, if you like. Um, but it would, if you blinked, you'd miss it.
yeah, pretty
That
much.
sort of a clip.
But
We
it
then
didn't
go back.
really add
We
much at
then
the time. But
No, I
it will
think
add
we'll get
something
more from
different.
that.
That's the start of something, that is.
Yeah, 100%. Um, we then go back to the press conference area for another roadblock press conference. We had
Like,
Obafemi before. This time we've got Moose.
I've been
Um,
enjoying seeing quite a bit of Moose. To be fair, like we saw him last week, on the program. He's a pretty cool dude. He used to be a football player apparently. Um, I didn't.
yeah,
And
very much
normally,
so.
I know a reasonable amount uh, about sort of the American football because I do watch a lot of it. But I have had to have a quick look to say that he played between 2006 to 2012, and he played for the Atlanta Falcons, the Indianapolis Colts. So he would have been a teammate at one point of our homeboy on Monday Night Raw's commentary, Pat McAfee, and he also played for the Los Angeles Rams. Don't think he won a
So
Super Bowl.
boy gets about a bit then.
He definitely he makes some air miles. I'll give you that. I would try and pronounce his real name, but I have the utmost respect for this gentleman and do not want to butcher it. But it's not very easy
Fair.
to pronounce.
No, I can't see it, and I'm not willing to do it either. So yeah, we'll leave that at that. But yeah, it's a case that Moose talks about being a prize fighter and how he's gonna basically end Obafemi's NXT Championship reign as yeah, they're not competing in a winner takes all title versus title match. It is a case that Moose is coming to take that NXT heavyweight title off Obafemi in short order. And I'm going to be honest, based on what I've seen of Moose and what I know of Obafemi, it's going to be a difficult match to call. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to reliably call a winner to that match without being able to, or without changing my mind several different times.
I couldn't call it and back it up without chatting complete bollocks about something I don't know about, so I'm not going to.
Fair enough. But we're then, it's a case that Moose is not really feeling doing press conferences by the looks of things, as he is then replaced by Ava at the press conference booth, who announces a few different matches. One of which we won't have mentioned just yet is Roxanne Perez versus Jordan Grace, um, which is where that little clipette sort of plays into things. And to end this little segment, we see Fatal Influence interrupt to ask about Fallon Henley's championship rematch for the North American title. She's quite right in what she says. She hasn't had that rematch yet.
Well, I thought those rematch clauses had been written out of title matches because it was just becoming the same old sort of people over and over and over again.
So I think they observe that rule as and when they feel it as and when they feel they can get away with it. It's a case that yes, it can get very samey when you're seeing the same two people face off against each other week after week after week after week after week, and yeah, it's one of those. It's going to be a case that I don't think they'll ever write it out completely, but there will be a certain element of it's not always observed when it should be, sort of thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so
Uh,
Ava's trying to tell Fallon Henley that she needs to wait and they'll discuss it later. But Fallon Henley makes a very big deal of making sure that her opinions are heard in front of the media. At which point Ava, after telling her several times, calm down, we'll go and talk about it in my office. Ava got up and walked out and left Fallon Henley stood there looking like a twat.
Yeah, sort of Fallon Henley was very, very sort of wanting to talk about it now. Ava was saying, "Look, I just want to go and watch the main event. I don't really want to talk about it right now.
What a main event
I'll
it
talk
was,
to you
though.
about it when I'm ready."
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Sorry.
I said, what a main event it was, though. It was absolutely phenomenal.
So before we get there, however,
We do
we've got
have
to
one
make
more bit to mention. An
we
honourable
do. It's
mention.
a backstage promo with
The
so
gentleman
far.
who beat Tony D'Angelo up, Ridge Holland.
Yeah, who seems to come out to confront and have a few crosswords with the so far overhyped Ricky Saints.
Definitely overhyped.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get some pushback on this realistically from Saints fans, but it's a case that I'm sorry until you can show me a match, put him in a one-on-one match with someone, anyone, and then let me make a decision because so far,
What we saw in that tag match. Yeah, I mean, it's not been great at all, really. He didn't get a lot of time to
no,
showcase himself in the last match. I'm not sure if they're trying to
it,
protect their prize asset or not, but
it
yeah.
just feels like he's been like a lot of they've assumed I think that a lot of hardcore fans are going to know who this person is, and I don't think I would ever class me and Rich as like hardcore fans, but it's not very often that somebody comes in from another promotion that either me or Rich, at least one of us knows something about.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get a lot of stuff on social medias from AEW. Don't necessarily watch it, but I know I've got a rough idea what's going on over there and who's over there. But yeah, if it pops up, I'll see it. But yeah, I haven't got a vast knowledge of. Well, I've got reasonable knowledge, but a lot of the time I just be like, Google. I had to do that with
Whereas,
Tony Saints. Well, Ricky Saints, to be fair. I had no idea who Ricky
yeah,
Starks was.
no, and I'm still really none the wiser. I've sort of, I've I don't want to go back and watch any of his previous work because I want to judge him based on his merit and what he gets to do in WWE. And so far, based on what he's done in NXT, it is a case that I'm thoroughly underwhelmed.
Yeah, and I don't
Thoroughly
blame you, to be fair.
underwhelmed.
I do not blame you. Right, well, let's not underwhelm ourselves for too much longer. Let's jump into something that on paper is meant to be an absolutely phenomenal match. This is our main event of the evening. This was for the North American Championship between the
current holder Tony D'Angelo and the challenger Shawn Spears. This was a culmination of, well, it all started really with Shawn Spears giving Tony D'Angelo a beatdown after his match against Ridge Holland at Vengeance Day in a steel cage.
Well, I think it's been going on for. It's been going on sort of
lot
beyond
longer.
that. But yeah, it's a case that this was D'Angelo's first match back since that steel cage match, if you want to call it that. It's a case that he's. It's been well documented that he's still suffering with his back because of that, because of what happened in that steel cage. But in fairness, Tony D'Angelo comes out super aggressive and dominant in early doors on this match.
Kind of had to.
And
Shawn Spears is trying to make him look like a bitch. Tony D'Angelo's not about that life.
No, this is it. But it's important as well to note that D'Angelo came out with the rest of the D'Angelo family at ringside, and Shawn Spears came out with their counterparts, I suppose, his family. If we're going to call them that.
They're trying to claim they're the next family of NXT or the only family in NXT. So yeah, family is kind of a loose way of going about it.
Yeah, very much so. But yeah, it's. Do you know what? I didn't entirely hate this match. NXT this week was due to the production issues and everything like that, or the perceived production issues from the edit that they put together and then published on Netflix that I then went on to watch. The NXT product this week just wasn't there for me, and so it wasn't there for me. I didn't particularly enjoy what I watched. This match I enjoyed. NXT on a whole, I think, could have been so much better, and it was that sucking black hole that was the Jordan Grace Cora Jade match, then the squash match for Trick Williams. That massive black hole in the card just completely sucked the fun out of it all for me. But this match was actually a nice reprieve. It sort of it went as far as it could to try and redeem back what we'd seen, but it just wasn't. It wasn't enough.
No, it didn't.
To redeem NXT
it wasn't
as an
enough
episode
good
this week.
to cover the bad that we'd had through the production issues. I mean, we did have a pretty good match for our main event, though. I couldn't sit here and lie to you and tell you it was a bad match. It really wasn't, but it wasn't. Dave Meltzer's not giving it 5 stars anytime soon. But we did get to see, a couple of high risk spots. We got to see Shawn Spears hit a quite nice spear, ironically. We also got to see him lock in the camel clutch at one point onto Tony D'Angelo, trying to go for the weakened back, which is still sore from his steel cage match.
Yeah, I mean, all of Spears' offense was focused on that lower back of D'Angelo, which I mean is the smart play realistically. Whether you're faced with an opponent that you could beat easily, or whether you're faced with an opponent that could beat you easily, or somewhere in between that, it is a case that you look to take any and every advantage that you possibly can. If you're not doing that, then you're not doing right by yourself or anybody else for that matter.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But yeah, it is a case that most of what you've said is what I picked out of this match.
The only thing we haven't mentioned is the ending of the match, where there is. So Shawn Spears has got Tony D'Angelo and a sharpshooter. Izzy Dame interferes, and I didn't quite catch how she interfered because I was still writing the previous note, but I know that all hell broke loose after this, and the referee was very, very.
So Spears did have D'Angelo in a sharpshooter. D'Angelo manages to power out of the sharpshooter, and goes to and hits his finishing move, the forget about it, and goes for a pin. At which time, Izzy Dame just seems to grab hold of Shawn Spears' foot.
Right.
And I've got a feeling that the intention behind it was to literally put his foot on the rope to break the count.
Yes.
But Shawn Spears ends up kicking out of it regardless. So I'm really not sure what it is that they tried to accomplish with that, or if they may have been so far out of position to be able to accomplish what it was that they were trying to do that they then had to sort of make it up on the fly a little bit.
It
But
could almost have been a case of shit, we're too close. What do you mean we're too close? Lift your leg up. That's the rope.
I think it's
shit,
got
we're
more
too
to
close.
do with too. I think it's got more to do with it was too far away.
Good
They were
shout.
too mid-ring to be able to without Izzy Dame having to have the strength within her to pull not just Shawn Spears by his foot, but also to have pulled Tony D'Angelo with him would have just been too much there for it to happen. So it was a case that they couldn't get good enough purchase on the bottom rope to break the count, and Shawn Spears had to kick out, basically still triggering the 2 count, but Izzy Dame trying to help seems to have triggered a brawl which was going to have had to have happened anyway, as Rizzo comes flying in, Thez press, and just beats the living hell out of Izzy Dame, which I think this tension has been building for such a long time, especially since that betrayal by Dame during that cage match. It's a case that it's just built and built, and this was letting some of that pressure off. It was that pressure release valve.
Yeah, it certainly was, and there was definitely a lot of pressure to be released. But I think they gave it the best they could, and we definitely did see towards the end of this match so that Tony D'Angelo is definitely still not 100% back to his normal self, because he was struggling. He was gassed.
Well, it's a case that during the brawl, the underboss ends up in the ring. Spears takes advantage of the fact that he's there, shoves him into D'Angelo, who at that point is stood on the outside of the ring on the apron, who basically falls back first onto a chair, which was originally brought out by Izzy Dame anyway. Spears comes out, drags the champ back into the ring, hits the C4, but only manages to get a 2 count. Spears only gets the win after Tony D'Angelo tries going for like a spine buster of some kind, but his back at that point just completely gives out, and Spears basically folds D'Angelo in half to get the pin count, and we have a new North American champion in Shawn Spears.
That we do, which is something we've been looking at for a little while. Makes me think maybe Tony D'Angelo may have dropped that one due to get some extra work done on his back to try and make life a bit easier for him in the future.
Yeah, quite possibly. Quite possibly. I think
It could just be a massive coincidence, but yeah.
It's not outside the realms of possibility to me.
So yeah, Shawn Spears reverses the spine buster for a 3 count to win himself a title, and that North American title is pretty. That red band is just, it fits it nicely, doesn't it?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. And yeah, I don't think we've heard the last of this little family feud between the D'Angelo family and Shawn Spears' whatever it is that he's calling them.
Let's just hope they don't bring Steve Harvey in for a guest appearance. Family Feud.
Yeah. Oh well, it could end up there. It wouldn't be the first time that WWE's ended up on Family Feud. But
Not, no.
yeah, we've come to the end of a match. This was because of production issues and the way that it was all edited together. The entire episode of NXT this week, when you go back and listen, instead of watching it live, watch the edited version. It comes to just over an hour. And I've got a feeling that this podcast episode is actually longer than the episode of NXT that's currently circulating on Netflix at the moment.
It is. You are correct.
But yeah, I've run out of notes for NXT at least.
I have too, to be fair.
Yeah. So thank you all for listening. The next time we will be dropping an episode, it will be NXT does SmackDown, where we will start to see a little bit more of the fallout from Elimination Chamber, I think, because there's some heated bits coming our way, and we'll be there to break down every last morsel
for your entertainment. But yeah, I will see you, Adam, on Finishes and Factions does SmackDown. Thank you for joining me.
Look forward to it, buddy. See you guys later.
Bye.